Welcome back. I'm Chris Kimura. Earlier in the show, we asked you to share your thoughts online, and you have. We thank you for your comments and questions. Jessica kicked us off. She tweeted and asked if MLK Day 2021 is different because of all that happened in 2020. Gigi responded to her and said, definitely. It's also a reminder of a great leader taken from us by racist extremists, by violence. On our website, Ben Vickers in San Jose shared a story, personal story, about spending 26 years in the National Guard. He said he saw a model there, black and white men and women working side by side in harmony. He concluded, I support all people, no matter what color, in their efforts to expand their knowledge and skills. And finally, to Maria in Dublin. She posted a question we have seen over and over again here. How can we really get the conversation going for all who want to participate? Jessica, if I've learned anything in these 9 episodes, I think the right answer here is to ask, but then stop and listen.
Yeah, really listening is really the key. You know, we've talked about this so much. In every relationship that you have with anyone, listening is key, right? But especially here when we're trying to figure these things out, it's about asking the question and then not thinking you have the answer or not thinking you have to take the movement forward. You have to listen and then take your cues. So that's how we do that. Thank you so much.
Hopefully more of it.
Okay, so how do we move forward given everything that's happened in this country? One Bay Area pastor says that today's holiday is radically different than years past. Dr. Dante Quick has been a senior pastor at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church in Vallejo for nearly a decade. And as we reflect on Dr. King's legacy, Marcus Washington talked to the pastor about healing and the path to unity.
This is the day that people volunteer. This is the day that people are pushing forward. How do we take the anger that we have, the anger that we see on television right now, and really turn that into something that does provide hope?
Well, I think we need to reestablish what hope is and recognize that today is a day for us to come into close contact with the reality of our nation and to create a healthy racialized society. Part of the mistake I think we've made is to try to be post-racial. That is not a realistic expectation. Dr. King and his spiritual mentor, Howard Thurman, taught us that we have to be so secure in our personhood that we're not threatened by someone else's personhood. I can be so secure in my blackness that I'm not threatened by someone else's whiteness. Or I can be so secure in my sexuality that I'm not threatened by someone else's sexuality.
Talk to me about how do we take the pain that all of what's happening right now is doing, and how do we bring it forward?
Well, I think we have to deal with reality. And I have said quite often when people say this is not us, it is exactly who we are. And just take here in Vallejo. Last year, I dealt with a swastika being posted by a member of the police union here. That whether we're talking about Tulsa or any other time in human history, in American history, this is exactly who we are. The problem is we're dealing with the crisis of the white consciousness. Unless America deals with the notion of our history for what it is, and then works very hard to accept and include each other into that history, we're always going to revisit it. I did a workshop for 400 corporate leaders last week, and one asked, why do we keep going back into history? And my explanation was this: if you have an itch somewhere on your body, you keep going back to scratch it, and you're going to go back until you deal with the fundamental root of that itch. That's why we keep revisiting this history. We have to deal with the initial itch of America.
How do we deal with that?
I think we have honest, thoughtful, sometimes difficult, what we call curative conversations. These conversations have to lead to us acknowledging the reality of where we are, who we are, and then struggle patiently and mightily to come to a new consciousness of who we can be. We can't do that by silencing history. We can only do that by acknowledging we've not been all we could be. And yet, there's the real possibility deep within our consciousness, deep within the fabric of our nation, that we can overcome it. That's what Kamala Harris represents. That's what our nation and my Morehouse brother Raphael Warnock represents. That's what Dr. King represented. We're celebrating a man that was crucified. He was shot and killed. That's a part of this day that we don't want to acknowledge. We want to acknowledge his birth. We want to acknowledge his dream. But we got to acknowledge the way he died and what he died for. That's why we have to change the symbolism of this holiday in order to bring it to fruition. In order to accomplish his dream, we've got to walk through the nightmare.
Cool. And
Powerful words. Thank you.
very powerful. Now, as we mark this historic changing of the guard, we remember the words of Dr. King. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Let's hope so. Good night and be safe.